Hang on. Welcome, folks. Give me 1 second. You know what's funny? I'm getting better at doing the show, I think, but I still haven't gotten the timing down of not eating right when the show starts. So I apologize about that. All right, hang on. We've got big news today. We all know the news. We're going to talk about what it means. Way the Loud, been a member for 2 months. Thanks, buddy. Says Elden Ring, Jaffe Ring. You goddamn right. You goddamn right. Okay, here we go. Go bubbly here. We'll get started. Now, look, if you're interested in sharing your piece on this, Ricardo and I are waiting for you in the call-in waiting room on the Discord. I don't think I'm going to turn the phone on today. That can be a pain in the ass, but
God damn it, Maverick!
But we might. We'll see. We'll see what people want to do. But let's start talking about Xbox's deal. We'll kick that off and we'll see where things go. So obviously, you know the news. The judge came out today, and briefly, I'm not going to try to educate you on this. Everybody knows what's going on. She says, "Hey, the FTC wanted to have an injunction before the 18th deadline to say, hey, let's put on the brakes here." And she went through the whole case. It was like, 5-day case? And she comes back and says pretty much no. In fact, I loved what she said, where she pretty much, this was such a slap in the face of the FTC. She said that pretty much the FTC's argument was Phil Spencer's argument, Jim Ryan's argument. And she's like, so, no, which is not to say just because they have the same argument, you could argue that Jim Ryan is right. But she was pretty much saying, we understand why Sony would say what they're saying, but the FTC pretty much just towing that line was not very convincing to her. So here's where it stands right now. My understanding is Xbox has said that the not European, that one's cleared, the UK body, the CMA, I think. I haven't missed it yet. I'm Thomas. They have come out and said that originally they were the last hurdle. And for a while, Xbox was saying, hey, we're okay with that. Fuck them. We'll figure out a way to circumvent them if they don't want to work with us. It's not worth throwing the deal away for one little country. I know it's the UK. I'm not mocking the UK. They lost the war, but I'm not mocking them or anything. But then today the news was that it sounds like the CTA and Microsoft are going to get together and try to kind of come to an agreement, kind of like they've done with other places, like with this Call of Duty 10-year plan, blah, blah, blah. So who's to say? At this point, the FTC currently still has a lawsuit to stop or to go up against Microsoft and say, we don't think this is okay. They also have until Friday, maybe, I might be getting the dates wrong, to appeal the judge's decision. But my understanding is and again, past doesn't have to be prologue, but my understanding is when the FTC was trying to block, I think there was a deal with Facebook or Meta this year. Meta was trying to acquire this company called Within. Once they got hit with the judge on that, like they were today, they didn't appeal. They just let it go. However, to be fair, the FTC has said, we are disappointed in this outcome given the clear threat this merger poses to open competition in cloud gaming, subservices, and consoles. In the coming days, we'll be announcing our next step to continue the fight. So whether or not that's true or not, who's to say, but that is their statement. So they could very well appeal, and the judge that they get could give them the injunction, which Activision has said will make them walk away, make Activision walk away. Or if the judge doesn't, then they'll go to the Ninth Circuit Court where they will decide whether or not this is a done deal or not. So, but everybody who's in the know and everybody who's been educated with more than a banana and inner tube, which does not include me, has said that this looks pretty good, pretty probable that this is going to go through. So while nothing is set in stone and lots of things could change, we're going to go ahead and talk about the news as it relates to Xbox and Sony regarding the assumption this is going to go through. Let me get this super chat first. New member, I'm Thomas too. Thank you, buddy. He says, I appreciate you subscribing, buddy. Let me get you a little, let me get you a little, this goes out to you, sir.
We're just normal men, just innocent men.
Goddamn right. I am Thomas too has become a member. He says, I'd love to see you on the Iron Lords podcast someday. I think you'd be a great guest. I've been on their show before. I enjoyed it a great deal. I would love for them to have me back. I kind of mended fences with, Lord Cognito, and we'll see where things go. But I would absolutely, I would absolutely love to see that happen. Okay, where would the FTC go next? They chose this court and the judge. It was the best chance they had, right? But I'm just saying, VG, that they can appeal it. The actual desire for an injunction, right? And they might not. I don't know that. Based on their language, it sounds like, but the news says the FTC has the chance to appeal the decision ahead of the midnight deadline of July 14th, a couple days away. But the regulator didn't appeal a court's decision permitting Meta to acquire Within, so it may abandon the case altogether. Maybe their thinking is it's like, look, either they knew they didn't have a case, or they really thought their case, meaning the FTC, was pretty airtight, and the judge just kind of shredded it, and whether or not they just think this judge was wrong, or they think, hey, this is probably the way the wind is blowing, let's just fucking get out while we can. I don't fucking know. But we'll see. But I want to talk about it more as it relates to what it means to you and I as game players, right? Let's live in the world and assume it's going through. Anyone who is anti-FTC is sort of a fucking Ravno says, well, look, the idea behind the FTC obviously is to protect consumers. I have followed this case, not like a lot of the people out there that are really following it insanely and know every detail, but I followed it. And, I'm a consumer first kind of guy. I'm not all about corporate profit and all that shit. And if the FTC had come around and said, let us explain why this is bad. Not for Sony fans, not for people who hate Xbox, not for ponies, not for fucking 5-year-olds or people who are adults who act like 5-year-olds when it comes to that shit, but just like consumers at large, then I would be like, oh shit, that's a really good point. I didn't understand that. Yeah, absolutely. But there's nothing that they said that, unless you can point to something that was indicative of the fact that this actually is anti-consumer. But sure, you want the FTC to be there to protect the consumer, but it's felt more like they were trying to protect Sony. Ninth Circuit is the appeal, says DeFreezy. My understanding is different, but maybe I know that there's two things the FTC was doing. The first was trying to get an injunction from the July 18th deadline, which is to say then the deal would go through. Or they were going to go to, because there's a separate trial set for the FTC versus Microsoft, right? And that is not this. I assumed that was the Ninth Circuit, but no, you're saying the actual judge appeal for today's decision is the Ninth Circuit, but the FTC lawsuit is still on. But I assume they'll drop that as well if they drop the appeal. Why would anyone not involved in the deal not want the deal to go through, says Ultra Awesome. I will tell you. And I was talking about this with some people earlier today, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse unless you guys like me beating the dead horse and you want me to kind of go over it again. But the high concept of why I want the deal to go through is I think that it is good for the art form. I don't have a dog in the fight either. I don't really care who makes their money and all this shit. But I'm interested in seeing video games as an art form grow and become bigger and more artistic and more interesting. I saw a story today that it said that like a 65-year-old people and older now are playing more video games than ever before. And I like the idea that whether you're talking about mobile games or console games or PC games, that games are really stepping into the light of just a normalized artistic medium and entertainment medium. And I think this acquisition allows the art form to grow. Now, here's what I would love. But it's not going to happen. I appreciate that. And Lux, I'm only calling you out because I just saw your chat, but I've seen it go up a couple of times in the chat here. Lux says, Microsoft buying Activision has nothing to do with art. These are the comments. No offense, Lux. I'm not, being a dick or anything, but these are the comments that kind of piss me off. Because that comment means nothing to me. If you kind of like people saying the FTC is there, in this case, to protect consumers. If you're saying it has nothing to do with art, and here's why, then I'm interested. But you just telling me that, or even these are such terrible arguments. I wish you guys had taken debate in high school or something. But Joystick Guru says, yeah, Microsoft buying Activision will not create growth and originality. What the fuck are you on about? I don't know if he's talking to me or not, but I'm just like, be specific. What are you saying? I'll be specific for you. Here's why I think it's good for the art form. Okay? I don't care about Microsoft. I don't care about Xbox. I don't care about Game Pass as it relates to the person who owns, or the company that owns, Game Pass. Don't care. What I care about is, I have seen, and I've said this before, and you can disagree with it, but disagree with comments, not just like, you're an idiot. I have seen the explosion of quality television and movies that have happened when the subscription services have started competing together. Every year now, more and more, but every year for the last, 6 years, a streaming service has had at least one, or streaming in general has had at least one picture up for Best Picture. They dominate the Emmys. The biggest directors and actors and writers are going to them because they are competing with one another, right? That has allowed all kinds of shows, and also the fact that the safety net for creative risk-taking on subscription services, maybe not budgets, but creative risk-taking, is much, much safer and higher. And so you get a lot of really weird niche shit that you would never get. And that expands the market as well. Doesn't mean they're not making big populist stuff like Stranger Things and whatnot. Of course they are, and they need to, and they will continue to do so. But and people who say, well, video games aren't like TV. The only argument I've heard for that makes a little bit more sense, and I think they're right about this when they say they're not like TV, as it relates to this topic, is only the idea that TV goes so fast because the run times of the shows are, movies or TV, it's a couple hours, you're done. Even if you binge a whole season, it's, whereas if you get sucked into, say, Diablo 4 when it's free on Game Pass, even though there's all these great games on Game Pass, you may not have the same response to a TV subservice as a game subservice. And we'll have to see if that plays out. But short of that, which I don't know, that's why I think it's good for the medium, because I've seen it be good for the medium in other entertainment products, specifically movies and television. And so I want to see Sony now. I mean, the question really becomes, okay, if this deal is going to go through, and it looks more and more likely that it is, I want to see Sony now go, what are we going to do, fellas? How are we competing with this, right? PS Plus has a lot of good stuff going on. They've, I don't think they need to go day one with their big mega titles, but I do think they need to start competing harder on some of the reasons that you would choose PS Plus over Game Pass, right? And it's a little different because you need the console, but maybe not for too much longer. But certainly Game Pass, if you have a PC, you're fine or whatever. But that's the reason. That's the fucking reason. That I think the deal is a good deal for it to go through for the market. Jaffe here is a question: is the art form really part of the entertainment industry? Of course, it is. Compromised, but art that is not funded by the individual artist alone has always been compromised in one way or another. So, yes, it is. Let's put it this way: it's the reason that Martin Scorsese is making what is probably going to be the best picture of the year, according to people who have seen stuff of it. The DiCaprio thing he's doing with is De Niro in that? I think so. The Flower Moon thing, whatever. He couldn't fund it. It's like a very expensive movie. So he went around, nobody would fund it, but Apple TV stepped up and funded it, right? So I'm not saying Tim Cook's telling Martin Scorsese how to make a movie, but there were a lot of people who said no. So yeah, I think the art form, as it relates to what 99% of people play, is always going to be funneled to some degree through the lens of the business that funds it. Absolutely. Killers of the Flower Moon. That's right. That's right. Okay, Ravnos, you need to be specific. He says, Jaffe, your concept of streaming equals good art is deeply flawed. How long do you guys have to watch this stream before you realize you need to be specific? I'm reading it more to point out to you that this is an example of someone not being specific. Here's what that sentence should be. Jaffe, your concept of streaming equals art is deeply flawed because, right? Or call in on the Discord. But right now, that what kind of comment is that? I don't understand. Bake Magna says, good shows were never lacking before streaming. That's not true. And there were bad shows before streaming and current streaming. So mentioning only the successful shows is completely biased. But it's not, Bacon Magma. Okay, yes, there were always good television shows. There were classic television shows before streaming. Absolutely. But before streaming, you had to either be a sitcom or you had to be a drama for the most part. And in that, you had to acquiesce to the demands of ABC, CBS, NBC, or whatever cable network you may have been on, okay? And ultimately, it didn't matter as much if the show was brilliant after Friends. As long as they had Friends, they had you for the shitty show afterwards to make sure you stuck around for ER, right? There were a lot. The business model always influences the art that pays, the business model that pays for the art. And so now that that's gone, the run rate, you can have a show be as long or as short as it needs to be every week or every episode. The cost of the shows can be less because they don't all have to be mainstream eating, right? I can, like I told somebody the other day, I watched a documentary about a guy who's in a black metal band. I think it's called black metal, right? Like really rage metal. And he also opened a retro arcade. It's on Amazon. That would have never been a documentary approved for TBS or PBS. But Amazon's like, fuck it. You know, it's only going to cost you $300,000 to make it. And there's enough of an audience out there and we need content. I'm sorry. You know, mathematically speaking, it's very easy to prove that we are in a much better age of variety and risk-taking when it comes to storytelling in linear media that has been, birthed by the streaming services and the competition among the streaming services. I don't know how do you deny that? How do you deny that? Jaffe, what's your take on? Oh, we'll get to that later, Eric. We're not going to talk about that right now. He's talking about the 87% of games that are no longer available. I don't really think that's true, but I did read that study. Jaffe likes an Apple TV show. This Activision is deal for good art is all I'm hearing. It is sarcasm. Good. It should be sarcasm. Frosty, this is what Frosty's saying over on the Discord. He says, so good for the art form. It's sort of worked. First off, no, it hasn't sort of worked. It has majorly worked for the other streaming services. When they could have used that money and actually invested in indie studios to produce actual new innovative art instead of purchasing Activision Blizzard. The argument makes no sense. It makes total sense. I'm not saying that Phil Spencer, let's be clear. I'm not saying that Phil Spencer is walking around going, I'm all about the art form. Phil Spencer is walking around, right or wrong, the future will let us know, going, I'm excited that I'm going to get whatever value I get from being a good executive because now that I have all this shit on my service is going to be a lot more desirable, and we actually could have ourselves the vision of what Game Pass has been pitched as, right? That vision leads to better art form of the medium simply because they have to keep people from churning. They're not going to get a Call of Duty every month, right? PlayStation Plus, hopefully, Maybe Amazon if they ever got their shit together, but who knows if they will. Netflix certainly is starting to do some good work in games. Eventually, hopefully, they'll have the competition that says, look, I subscribed, I played 3 months of Call of Duty, played a little bit of Crash, now I'm moving over to PS Plus because they have Jade Raymond's new game, and I want to play that. That's how a lot of people deal with streaming services. So this idea that Phil Spencer has to be on the TLC tip of I'm doing this because of the art form, that's irrelevant. I don't care what Phil Spencer's doing it for. I'm saying that when we've seen this done in other mediums, what ends up happening is the competition is good for the art form because it allows niche and chance taking. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Michael Quinn says, to play devil's advocate, can't the need for content degrade the content? Sure. There's no guarantee this is going to work. There's absolutely no guarantee. There's no guarantee that ultimately Game Pass will find that it's much easier to keep people from churning by having addictive grind games and not these wonderfully artistic 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour, What Remains of Edith Finch games. Absolutely. And then it could go tits up. None of us know. I know it's not tits up. That's from a show, but it could go bad. That we don't know yet. But then we're all just we're guessing anyway. I don't know those things, but I know that it beats what we have now. Max says Sony doesn't have the kind of financial backing to make Activision moves. Hell, they're even hoping they can get one good games as a service game going. Oh, I know. And I've said that before. People got mad at me when I said this may ultimately be the beginnings of Sony going third party. Now, ultimately, everyone's going third party, right? But let's assume we're not in the streaming world yet. It won't be there for 10 years or whatever. Yeah. I mean, unless they break off the PlayStation division and sell that to Apple or a big fucking company, I think you're right. I think they're going to have to figure out a way to compete in a different way. And maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll work. Masochista says the Colin pushback is we do know it could go wrong. Apple App Store brings the example. You're simply wrong, though, about that, Masochista. If you subscribe to Apple Arcade for $4.99 a month, it is awesome. There are no microtransactions. There are no commercials or ads. They are if you like Apple TV games or Apple, or mobile phone games, they're excellent, right? They're excellent fucking games. So I'm sorry that you think that, but you're simply misinformed. If you're talking about the App Store where everything is free, sure, but that's free-to-play gaming in general. Hello, Ricardo, I hear... Oh, who's that? Alix? Who's talking to me? So I hear noise.
Hello?
Hello, alien. What's going on, buddy?
It's Max.
Hey, Max. I can never remember your fucking name.
I know.
Max,
I know.
What do you think about this crazy deal that's happening? What do you think about the news?
You know what? I think it's good. People get their panties in a twist for nothing. Sony has 10 years to figure some kind of Call of Duty alternative out. Maybe something better will come out of this.
Right. And maybe it won't, but in 10 years, people are probably going to be streaming most of the fucking games anyway. You don't even need the box, but let's assume you do. I mean, there's no doubt Call of Duty is entrenched in the zeitgeist, and maybe it'll be entrenched forever. Who the fuck knows? But you're absolutely right. I mean, you worked at Sony forever, just like you worked there probably the same amount of time I did collectively.
Yeah.
They're smart people. You think they're not sitting around going, okay, we know we got to fight this battle?
Sorry, guys. Let me just interrupt. Alien or Max, can you please lower your mic's volume a little bit?
Yes.
Sorry.
God damn it, Max. Max, big personality. That's how he talks. That's how he always talks.
Sorry.
Whatever. But what I'll tell you, though, is, I'm not bothered by it. And what's funny about it, too, is everybody acts like, you and I have been around long enough working in the industry to see this. Everybody acts like this shuts the gate on everything. What happened? Now you're saying Jaffe's mic is too low. Oh, my God. I don't know how to do it. What occurs when people are at a company and their contracts are up and they're unhappy. They go off and start new companies and become the companies that everybody starts following. We saw it happen with Blizzard. We've seen it happen with Chair that went on to do Fortnite with Epic. I mean, that's just kind of the dance that gets done. What's that?
Respawn,
exactly. Now, okay, hey, 1 second, Max. Ricardo, am I the only one, or is Space Donegan saying he's the only one saying that he can't hear me, or you guys can hear me fine? Anyway, let me know. But yeah, I'm with you, Max.
I think you're good.
Okay,
to be honest.
I got
Max is a
0.
bit low now. Sorry.
oh, Jesus, okay.
Activision was founded by former Atari employees. Right, that's absolutely right. So I don't really see. I think if you rip out the fanboyism, then I think most people think about this. Imagine, forget Sony for a moment. If you are buying an Xbox or if you are buying Game Pass this Christmas, I mean, if this deal goes through on the 18th or around those parts, you've got the brand new Call of Duty, which we know is coming out. It's kind of a Modern Warfare 2 Plus, which is coming out this Christmas. And you've got Starfield coming out this Christmas. I mean, how can you not be excited as a gamer if and people are like, well, the price is going to go up. Well, who gives a shit? I mean, you know how much value you're getting? If the price goes up for $20 a month, pay $20 for December, play the shit out of the games and cancel. What's the problem? What do you think? Where's this coming from, Max? What's wrong with people?
I don't know. I mean, to me, I understand the subscriptions. I love buying games and playing the hell out of a game till I'm sick of it. And, I don't buy or play, I play a bunch of different games, but mostly VR right now. Mm-hmm. But I mean, hey, it's good to have options, right? You could still buy games and not have the subscription. Yeah. Yeah. And in the end, if you want to do that, if you want to get the subscription and, play a bunch of games, you can do that too.
And don't you think it's a little disingenuous too, a lot of these people talking about, oh, the deal's bad for the art form, not good for the art form? I'm like, maybe if you guys were out there actually playing a lot of indie games and AA games and you knew you were on the forefront of what the art form was, maybe you'd have a pot to piss in. But what they're really saying is it's bad for my big budget Sony cinematic games. And I get it. It is. But the landscape for that is kind of changing a little bit. I think it's going to be a real interesting thing to watch that genre and see what happens. How is your game doing? You guys just had a game launch on PSVR 2, correct?
Not yet. It's coming out. Yet.
What do you think about the numbers of the hardware?
And how many? Oh, for PSVR?
Well, I mean, do you think it's kind of dead in the water like people have said online, or do you think, no, it's just getting started? Okay, good.
No,
good.
I mean, not at all.
Okay.
I think that in the end, right now you can only buy it from Sony. They're going to start probably selling it in the stores pretty soon when it comes Christmas time. Who knows if they'll keep the same price or not. But, it's, to be honest, PSVR 2, we're still figuring things out.
Okay.
It's the initial people that got it are, I don't want to say they're, test pilots, but, I bought one. They're coming out with games pretty often, once every couple of weeks. I'm happy with it. And, when our game comes out, hopefully more people will buy
when are you guys coming out? What's the date?
Can't say the date yet, but very soon.
Before
soon.
Christmas, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Excellent. All right, Max, you're doing good? Everybody's good?
Everybody's great.
Good, man. Good to hear from you as always. Thank you for calling, Max.
Keep it up, Dave.
I'm doing my best, baby. I'm propping myself up with love and fucking Adderall. All right, I'll see you, bud.
Keep being you, dude.
I can't help it. Bye, bud. There goes Maxwell, the main artist on the main effects artist on the God of War. Come on now, all the God of War games. Let me get this comment here in the chat. First, let me get this super chat. Leg Fam has super chatted. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I don't see a message with that, but I certainly do appreciate your helping out the show. Thank you, buddy. This fella here Where did he go? He's a guy in the chat who likes to go by Despada. He says, he's trying to point out that my take is the business model of these expensive single player games. Well, what about this that sold this? And what about this that sold this? Yes, I'm not saying the games don't sell. I'm not saying there's a lack of interest in those games, Despada. Those more often than not are my favorite kinds of games. Narrative-based single-player games. I'm not shitting on them. I'm saying, though, that they are getting more and more expensive to make, and other things that make more money are getting less expensive to make, and the failures, when they fail, whether it's Callisto Protocol or whether it's Forspoken or whether it's Redfall, are extremely costly swings. And so you're going to see less of those made as companies realize they can make a lot more money in other ways if they can master that as well, which is why you see Sony jumping into the games as a service pool, okay? Consolidation says gaming needing has been proven to stifle creativity and innovation and promotes anti-consumer practices. Well, those are two different parts of the same sentence. Stifling creativity, again, let me be clear. First off, you're talking about Call of Duty, right? You're talking, it's not like this is the bastion of cutting edge GDC design award winning video games. It's Call of Duty. But even if Microsoft stifles the fuck out of Call of Duty, as long as it sells and their big hits sell and promote Game Pass, Microsoft will still be in a position to go, we need to keep people from churning. We need to keep people subscribing because it's working. Let's put it this way. If the only thing Microsoft has this year and in the next couple of months after is Starfield, and let's say Starfield, I think it's going to be great, but let's say it shits the bed, or let's say it's not going to be Redfall, but let's say it ends up coming in at like a 75, okay, and people like it, but it's not the classic people are hoping for. At that point, these guys are fucked anyway, right? I mean, if they don't have people subscribing to Game Pass, and this will help with that, they're fucked anyway. But if they have people subscribing because, Call of Duty's free, Diablo 4 is free, I'm putting free in quotes, fuck you, then the good news is they're going to have to figure out how to keep those people. My fantasy is, honestly, and I hate Bobby Kotick, I think he's the devil, literally the devil, and I'm atheist, okay? He's the goddamn devil. But if I'm Microsoft, I'm giving Phil Spencer a hug. I'm saying thanks. I'm saying keep your post as our visionary, but we're bringing Kotick in to run this shit because you have had plenty of opportunity and you don't know what you're doing. And Kotick can fucking run the shit out of these companies. I think now that looks like they've got this, you're going to keep the current management structure, man. What's the guy's name? Satya something, who runs the whole Microsoft play. If I'm him or I'm the board and I see this deal looking like it's going through and it's like, same as it ever was. What's Matt Booty going to do? He's going to just let them do whatever they want. He's the nice guy. I just don't even get me fucking started. Sergeant No Rider, is that right? Is in the call-in show. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me, Dave?
I can hear you great. What do you want to talk about, baby?
I'm wondering if people say there's a difference between buying one exclusive game and buying the entire publisher. And I tend to agree with that, except when you buy Deathloop and you buy Ghostwire Tokyo and you go after Starfield right after that. When you try to buy 3 AAA games in a row, when you're literally buying every AAA game the studio puts out, there's not much difference between that and buying the whole damn publisher. And so now I wonder if, cause I don't remember Scott Rhodey or Sean Layden ever doing something like that, just going one after the next, buying every single AAA game a big publisher like Bethesda puts out. And I'm wondering if Jim Ryan maybe regrets that now. Maybe that was a mistake.
I mean, it wasn't
to be that greedy because they were already on top. You're making all the money. Did you really need to have 3 AAA games from that publisher in a row? Did you need that?
You mean because you're talking about the stuff that came out with the FTC where Jim Ryan was going to Bethesda saying, we want to have an exclusive for Starfield and Deathloop and Ghostwire.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're going after every game, that's just. I mean, how is it any different from just buying the publisher?
Right. I mean, I there are obviously differences, but you're right. I mean, the idea that especially after the FTC, that Jim Ryan and Sony in general have been painted by people. They're just irrational fanboys. All I can think how they've been painted as these kind of like noble warriors in this fight. And they're not greedy. Come on, everybody's going to buy their way to success if they can. Everybody buys their way to success every day. The naivete of a lot of the audience that thinks Sony doesn't use whatever is in their power to compete is just ridiculous to me. It's like, well, Sony grows their shit organically. Fuck you. They do not. They spend the money that they have to spend to make the hits. Now, maybe they have a philosophical difference that they'll say, "Hey, we're gonna buy the exclusive rights for 3 games, and then we'll buy you." Maybe, but ultimately, it's the same thing. It's using your war chest to get one up on the competition. The idea that people have actually allowed themselves to be bamboozled into this bullshit PR stance that Sony is somehow this pristine, noble, pacifist Gandhi figure and all this is ridiculous. It is fucking ridiculous, man. But I will tell you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, the difference between Sony and Microsoft really is Sony has better taste. Sony understands that you've got to get photorealistic games, and that people like third-person action-adventure photorealistic games. I think Phil understands that too, but I've told people already before, he's just arrogant. He thinks that video games are an art form and that people's obsession with photorealistic third-party action-adventure games is sort of kind of denigrating the art form, right? So he's gonna force people to widen their palette to something beyond that. But the truth of the matter is, if Phil wanted to, he could have done an E3 already that had nothing but one photorealistic game after the next, and that would have sent Xbox on its way. But he refuses to do that because he's got this arrogant view about the art. I mean, I agree with him. It's an art form, but at the end of the day, the people want what the people want. If your customers keep going up asking for steak, you can't keep feeding them chicken.
You are absolutely right about that, but I think you have a very myopic view of the market. Because you're talking specifically about what has worked for PlayStation. Okay, but if you look at Nintendo's success, they would not tell you that what the people want are photorealistic cinematic games. If you look at the PC market and the tablet market, which a lot of the younger generation has come up with, and they're going to have to start figuring out how to speak to them as much as the 40-year-olds who grew up playing games, they're not really caring all that much. They want the online shit to play with their buddies and have social experiences, and they want to make their own crap in Roblox and Unreal Engine Creator, Fortnite 2.0, whatever the fuck it's called. So the idea that the customer has spoken, a subset has spoken, and yes, there are people that adore what Sony brings, and that's great. I love what Sony brings, but I think it's incorrect to paint it as that's the narrative is that's the majority. I don't think there's a reflection of that.
I don't think the media is going to get off Microsoft's neck until they give them an E3 with every single game. I think that I'll tell you what. I don't think you can bring Halo back unless you bring it back as a modernized third-party action adventure, violent. You've got to turn that violence knob all the way back up. You can't have if Halo comes out as a PG-13 game, that game is going to flop. It's got to be rated M. It's got to go that direction in order to bring that back. Otherwise, it's not going to come back. And will Phil ever do a rated M Halo? He'll never do it. And then you have to ask yourself, why won't he do that?
Well, I think there was, in my opinion, there was an overestimation of the popularity of the brand. I think Halo in its day was massive. I mean, it was fucking massive. I assume you were there. You sound old enough to be there when it was like ruling everything. It was the biggest thing in gaming culture and beyond gaming culture. But I think now so much has happened since the last Halo was really a big deal that I think that caught them they were surprised by that. So I think at this point, if you are going to redo Halo, regardless if you're Phil Spencer or not, you really have to kind of do what they did with God of War in 2018 and go, okay, I mean, maybe not that drastic of an update, but you have to figure out what was appealing about Halo back in the day and how do we make it appealing for people today. Because I thought Halo Infinite, especially the multiplayer, was phenomenal. But I still play Call of Duty a hell of a lot more than I play Halo.
Yeah, the multiplayer was fine. It's even like when Halo 5 came out, they made the campaign 60 FPS with worse visuals when everybody kind of said to them, this is really stupid. Look at what Sony's doing with Uncharted 4. The campaign's 30 and the multiplayer 60. You idiots are making the campaign 60 and making the visuals worse. And did the industry reward you for making an uglier game? No.
Not necessarily in that genre.
That's why I applaud what Todd's doing right now with Starfield. Who cares if people get upset about it?
Oh yeah.
If you put out an uglier version of Starfield at 60, they'll crucify you. I agree 100% what he did.
Right. All right, man. Thank you for the call. Please call back anytime. Good to talk to you, buddy. All right. Interesting call. If Microsoft, says Bobby George, took care of the IP they owned, I'd be happy about the deal, but they don't. Bye, everyone. Have a good night. All right. Good night, buddy. Bo Bandy, good to see you, buddy. He's been a member for 22 months. Thank you, sir. He says, tell it true, Jaffe. I try my best. I try my fucking best. But let's talk about Sony for a minute, right? Let's talk about this deal looks like it's going to go through. Whatever you think is good or bad for Xbox, for the market, for the art form. Look, end of the day, here's what I love about this deal going through, right? I love the deal is going through because it's time for people like me and some of you to shut up or put up, okay? So it may very well be that, think about this for a minute. If Game Pass, let's say everything's smooth sailing for Microsoft up until Christmas. So Microsoft comes out, they say Diablo 4, and don't come at me with the news that Mikey Barter said Diablo 4 is not coming to Game Pass. That was on the 10th. It's not announced to come to Game Pass yet. But if the deal is done, Microsoft has said Diablo will come to Game Pass. So let's just play it out like that's true. Diablo 4 drops, one of the biggest games in the world right now. The new Call of Duty drops. Starfield drops. It's a big fucking hit. Okay? So let's say all of those things come together, and let's say Microsoft actually finally does a good job marketing Game Pass beyond just the core, and they put ads everywhere that's like, fuck, I've said many times, you could pay $300 to get these games, or you could pay $18, $15 a month and get them all on Game Pass for quote free. Okay, let's say all that works. And then all that work gets done and Game Pass still doesn't go anywhere, or it goes somewhere great until February, and then Microsoft is incapable of managing their catalog and their portfolio, and then it just drops off. Okay, great. Fantastic. Then I'll be like, you know what? I liked my vision for Game Pass. I liked what Phil had for Game Pass as a vision. I like what they were promising. But end of the day, the guys who thought it was a bad idea, it was never going to work, it didn't work. If nothing else, we can fucking end the debate on it, because none of us really fucking know how the audience is going to respond. I'd love to see it go great, and I'd love to see Sony have to step up. I've said this many times. The fact that Sony, and they might, but the fact that Sony hasn't given one of their budgets of $200 million to just a bunch of day one PS Plus games that cost $10 million and giving them to really talented teams is insane to me. And I hope they have, because I think Game Pass is going to work, and I think they're going to have to find a way to get people peeled off from that and staying with PlayStation. Trey Trimble, I don't agree with you. But here's what I'll say. Trey Trimble is saying that Call of Duty. Can we at least all agree that Call of Duty has gotten terrible? I have not liked Call of Duty multiplayer since the second one, the third one maybe. I know a lot of hardcore fans don't like the new Call of Duty tuning, Time to Kill and all that. But this is my favorite multiplayer Call of Duty in a very, very, very long time, probably since 3. So I'm the wrong guy to ask, because if you're an aficionado of that franchise, then yeah, I could see maybe people going, this has gotten shitty. But I'm the wrong guy to have an opinion on that because I never liked it to begin with. Now I really like it. Max, I haven't watched it yet. I've been trying to get in and play some of them. ID at Xbox, the Indie Game Showcase. There's over 40 games right now to play on Xbox that are all obviously free. They're demos. He says there were some good-looking indies coming to Game Pass also. Yeah, so I believe you. I'm looking forward to playing those. I've had a hard time finding them on my dashboard. The next Call of Duty says Addy Pie will be even more egregious in microtransactions, buggy as fuck, and a boring game. Okay. I mean, I don't think that's this one. I don't think they're egregious in microtransactions at all. The only things I've ever bought in the current Call of Duty are at Christmas time. I bought a Santa Claus skin, and that's pretty much it. I haven't needed to buy anything to be competitive. I mean, such as I can be competitive. Bookster says, I hate Call of Duty. I think it sucks up and spits people out coming into game development. Well, that's game development, man. That's anything for the most part, unless you're making your own game or indies. It's also literal propaganda used to recruit teens to the military. I think any kind of glorification of making war fun does that, which is terrible. But when you say literal propaganda, that suggests that there is some sort of funding and or, mysterious figure whispering in the development team's ear of what they should do in order to bring people into, I assume you mean the American military, in which case I would say you're wrong, only because we know that if that were the case, then I don't imagine they would be too happy about the fact that Bobby Kotick removed references to Tiananmen Square, which was obviously a big riot in China that was trying to overthrow the dictators, the communist dictators, and bring capitalism or bring democracy. So if it is propaganda, and it's literal propaganda, then I would be very curious who's funding it, because they seem to have a real conflict of interest in the messages that they send. A Cab says they should show the horrors of war. Yeah. I've always wanted a game like that. I don't really know how you'd really show that, but yeah, sure. I would love to have something that had a more emotional impact, but that's not really how I look at Call of Duty. Call of Duty is just kind of it's kind of a abstract arena shooter or whatever. What if Bobby becomes new CEO of Xbox? Like I said, I think Bobby Kotick's the devil, but I think that would be a great move. I think, again, I'm consistent on this. I don't think Phil Spencer should go anywhere. I like the guy's vision. I like what he brings to Xbox, but he's the wrong guy in that role. Matt Booty's certainly the wrong guy in that role. You get someone, and I like Mike Ybarra, who runs Blizzard a great deal as a human. I've never worked with or for him, but I'm assuming he's a really good executive as well. Maybe he steps in and takes Activision. Here's my fantasy lineup. Here you go. Bobby Kotick takes over, although he has to wear an ankle bracelet, and every time he says something or supports any kind of horrific cultural shit, he gets shocked, and he gets knocked out and vomits profusely for like a week. But he would take over Microsoft, or Xbox, whatever. Phil would be there in some kind of co-lead or some capacity. Matt Booty would be put somewhere where his wonderful humanity and kindness and all the stuff that he brings and knowledge can be used. Mike Ybarra takes over Activision. Rob Ferguson comes in and takes over Matt Booty's job. That's what I think would be amazing. Short of just going and hiring Shu and Scott Rhodey and Connie Booth and Shannon Studstill. They could do that too. But they got to do something. I mean, it's almost, here's what it's like. It's like you have purchased for your child, who has had like 5 accidents, 10 accidents, nothing deadly for the most part, but fender benders and all this shit driving. And so they're not a good driver. And you go, here's a Ferrari. Here's the top of the line Ferrari. My son, Phil Spencer. My son, Matt Booty. You got to be out of your goddamn mind to give them the keys to that fucking Ferrari. Right? You go to a fucking guy who's been able to, worst case, just not get any fucking accidents. Best case is one like the fucking F1 or some such shit. Cosmic Bandito says Bobby ruined Activision with microtransactions and allowing sexual harassment. Again, two different things. Yeah, Admiral says Matt Booty's wrapped the thing around a pole in 2 minutes. That's right. The sexual harassment is different. I have no time for it. I think it's awful. I think it's horrible. I think it's just disastrous. But when it comes to running Activision, I must agree to disagree with you in terms of his competency and success running that company. Okay. Well, they didn't name their child. Eric says who names their child Booty. That's his last name. That's his fucking last name. Fuck you, Bukaki, you piece of shit. Hey, you bring me some fucking, you know what I'm going to say. I can't say it because YouTube's been really cracking down on that shit lately. I want the stuff, man. Here's what Ricardo says. He says, okay. Ricardo wants to know if there is going to be, is BattleNet dead, basically. I gotta ignore Addy Pie. I forgot he's a troll. Sure. I mean, nobody knows that, but I think why not? Why would you not fold BattleNet into Game Pass? Sure. I would, I'm trying to think. I launched Diablo directly from my PlayStation, so I haven't gone to BattleNet in a very, very long time because I don't play Hearthstone anymore because Marvel Snap has taken over. Jaffe, you lied to us, says Alex. You did not stream or play the Xbox ID demos. I literally made a video today, Alex, and I tweeted it out to Xbox, and I said, I can't fucking find your goddamn demos. The only way I can find the demos for Xbox is to literally go to a website that says, here are the names of the demos, like IGN, and then type in the names of the demos in the search bar. I can't find the link on my dashboard or deep within my dashboard. Ooh, filthy.
How dare you?
I can't find that link to play, but I want to. Trey Trimble, my buddy Trey Trimble. He of many creative products, including our very own launch screen. Look at that talented motherfucker. I wonder what that's like to be that talented. Two things I wonder. I always wonder what it's like to be really super attractive and really super talented. Those two things, the privilege that you must gain in this world from that must be staggeringly fun. But the point is, here's what he says. I love you, Jaffe. I love you too, Trey. What are your thoughts on gaming not seeing a lot of passion creations, like Twisted Metal being an idea you got to envision? My thoughts are that's simply not an accurate statement. It is an accurate statement. This is the thing. I talk about this a lot because I like that guy who called in recently, Sergeant, I forget his whole name, but he a good caller a couple minutes ago. This idea that the industry is not filled with passion projects. They are, but they're just not at the budget that we're talking about anymore. Dave the Diver is one of the best fucking games of the year. That's a hell of a passion project. It is insanely good. But, people aren't, the people who are like, I need photorealistic cinematic games, which is fine. They're not going to give that the time of day. So if you're talking about seeing passion creations at the level of AAA, those days are gone for the most part. Every now and then you'll get a Death Stranding. Maybe every now and then you'll get like a Starfield if that ends up actually working. But more often than not, though, you're spending, Sony came out a couple weeks ago in the FTC case and said they're spending $200 million. You're not going to have, somebody making Parappa the Rappa for $200 million or even, an eighth of that. So they're out there, though. The indie space is excellent right now if you know where to look, but it's not the way it used to be. That's for fucking sure. Many games you can feel there is no love, but you are right. I'm more in the indie space, says Perva. I mean, yeah, the indie space has, and I agree, Lutron, Returnal was magic, and it bombed. But yes, Returnal was a first-party game, and boy, that was fantastic, fucking fantastic. Part 2, thank you for the super chat, Trey. Brainstorm, nurture, create, and cherish because it was your idea and you wanted to do it. Now it seems like studios demand games. Well, they demanded games back then as well. And I'm not suggesting that when Corey goes to work or when Eric went to work on Ragnarok, they weren't following their bliss. I'm sure they were. but their bliss is now marbled in with a lot more cooks in the kitchen that have to have their say, I would imagine, because you're talking about a huge fucking risk. Like I had a production, I had a production at Sony in PS1 days, and that was a fucking top-down shooter that went for almost 3 years. But at the time, that 3-year investment, which was a total money pit, was a couple of $1 million. And that's still a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you're selling Twisted Metal for $50 and you're making your budget for that game was $850,000 and you sell over 1 million copies, right? It's very different today. But thank you for that super chat. Brett Williams has been a member for 10 goddamn months, sir. By the way, Brett Williams, I owe you and Spazbo a full price game gift card of your choice. So hit me up on the Discord later tonight as it relates to the testing that you guys did on Trickshot. Do we think Sony starts dropping their AAA games day one? They have the install base and plenty of IP. I don't think they should, because I don't think they can afford to, and I don't think they need to. And I want to see them make as much money as they can so they can continue to invest it in cool shit. But I do think, as I said earlier, what they really need to do is take one of their budgets that would usually go for one game and say, we're going to make 10 to 20 for $200 million. We're going to make a bunch of day one, I don't know how much Stray cost to make, but let's say it was around 12, okay? And I don't know how much Fall Guys cost to make, but it's certainly 110. I'm not saying those games, they should make those games, but I'm saying they should try to make commercial, so not arty-farty shit, commercial, compelling, engaging titles in the, $5 to $12 million space. And those are designed from the get-go to be day one PS Plus. That's what I think they should do. But, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is a lot. Here's what I'll tell you something that does clearly taint
How dare you?
my view on things. Because I'm not just a PlayStation gamer and I'm not just a AAA gamer, I absolutely have to admit that the lens through which I look at video games may not be a lens that is reflective of the majority of PlayStation gamers or console gamers, right? Because for me, I really don't see a big difference between playing Dave the Diver and then switching over and playing Spider-Man 2, right? They're both games. They're both games with really cool shit to offer. But a lot of people, I talked to Ricardo about it the other day. He's just like, I appreciate those small games, but I only game for the immersion and being lost in the world almost literally. And so I would say that there's a lot of PlayStation and console gamers that fall into that. And I don't think my take, like if you're Sony hearing my pitch, they might go, that sounds pretty cool, Jaffe, to have 10 to 20 low budget PS1 day one games. But our audience just doesn't care. If we put out a 4-hour Ratchet and Clank adventure with Rivet, and it was the same quality of graphics as the first one, and it's only 4 hours, a lot of them might just be like, that's dumb. I want my next big epic. And they may be right. The question is how many people feel that way. I don't know. If you only play one Gears of War game, says Zeke, which should it be? My guess is people say 2 and 3 a lot more than 1. I don't know if they did a remaster of 2 and 3. I did just play the remaster of 1 start to finish, and I loved it. Fucking great. Oh, yeah, I owe Brett Moore a prize, not you. That's right. Sorry, buddy. They constrain the consumer to a very narrow corridor of games, says Avoid, and the free market is taking that away. That's why we see all this gaming evolution. Well, how is the free market taking that away? I don't understand that, Avoid the Void. Look, if you want to talk about Starfield, I think Starfield, I don't know, obviously. So I'm not out here blowing the horn. You're a fanboy. No. Brett Moore, you got it, buddy. It's Brett. Anybody named Brett gets a card. I don't care. I'm kidding. But from what I have seen about Starfield, I'm excited for it. I want to see it. If that game came out and got a 9, it would not surprise me because I think its ambition is just kind of insane. if they can pull it off. But, you know, it can also take a shit. I don't care. I will go with 5. Zeke, I would be careful, though. He's going to go, okay, Gears of War 5 is very different than Gears of War 3 and 2. Gears of War 5 is, I don't mind the protagonist in Gears of War 5, but I think it's probably the weakest protagonist in the series. I also don't mind the open world, but it's nowhere near as good as the more linear Gears 1, 2, and 3 that really kind of take you on a roller coaster ride. If it were me, I would say the first 3 structurally are better, but, you know, it depends what you're looking for. Why did I attack Lord Cog? I did not attack Lord Cog. I attacked, if that's even the right verb, the practice of, I attacked the practice of not fans. And once COG spoke to me and explained that part of their product is celebrating the games, not just opining on them as sort of reporters or whatnot, I was fine with it. But, so I get it. If you're a fan or something, go have fun. Take pictures with anybody you want. But if you're like a journalist and your main bread and butter is being less about cheerleading some things and more about just like, look, you can always depend on no filter between me and my opinion, then I think the minute you go out and you put yourself in a photograph with executives or anybody really that you report on or opine on, it ends up at best just looking like you're compromised a little bit, even if it's subconscious, and at worst, literally making you compromised. So that's what I was talking about. And when COG said, yeah, no, I'm okay with that because we like to celebrate these people. That's part of what we do. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So that's kind of all I would say on that. I like all of the Iron Lords. I've been on their show once. They were all super, really nice, interesting guys to talk to. But COG came up, as I've said before, only because his was the most recent picture I had seen with Sarah Bond from some Xbox thing recently, and so it was top of mind. Who was supposed to be a reporter when they took pictures? Colin. That's right. And I didn't know that when I said that. But yeah, when somebody pointed that out to me, I said, oh yeah, I don't like that either. People are like, I gotcha. I'm like, no, I didn't know he did that. And when it was pointed out to me, I said, yeah, no, that's not, I don't like that. It doesn't work for me. Now, one could argue though, that on the show he took pictures for, which was, P.S. I Love You XOXO, where they literally have a picture behind them, if I recall, of like Shuhei as a religious divinity figure. They were viewing and reporting through a lens of we are pro PlayStation and we are unapologetically pro PlayStation. And in that case, if that's what they are, then I don't care. But if you're trying, somebody sent me a picture. They thought it was a gotcha picture. It was... some reporter, I forget who it was, sitting at a dinner with some politician, okay? The difference was, they're like, see, even, they do it there. I'm like, no, the difference is that this was a picture of the reporter discussing and debating something with their subject, okay? I'm not saying they can't ever interact, but it wasn't like, I'm trying to think of a reporter these days. It wasn't as if you had... I don't want to say any reporter because they're all polarized. You say Anderson Cooper, he's bad. But any reporter today going up to Donald Trump or Putin or whoever and putting their arm around him and pointing like, look at this. I know Putin. I take a picture with Putin. That's what I'm talking about. You're not going to see that shit. You're never going to see that shit. Or if you are, they're shit reporters. I'm super excited, says Phoebe, to see what games Xbox will talk about now that the Activision deal is done. Yeah, I'm curious too. I mean, if you look at Ricardo, I will talk about... Ricardo says this is becoming a free swim show now. Well, I'm trying to stay on the Activision news, but there's not much more to say about it other than... Here's what I'll say. I'll give you a couple of things that are related, okay? I'll give you this one that says Microsoft says they won't raise the Xbox Game Pass price immediately if the merger is approved, right? Okay. Whatever. This idea, that's another idea that drives me a little batshit. This idea that these people, it's like, well, they're going to raise the price. Yes, every prices go up all the time. Prices go up all the goddamn time. And ultimately, if they raise it too much, guess what? Unsubscribe. It's not like a vein or an IV into your body of fluids that if you don't have, you will perish. If they decide to charge $20, $30 for it and that's not good for you, then cancel it. What's the problem? But as to Activision, though, I mean, these are the games that I don't think they'll get all these day one because a lot of these have licensing issues. I don't know if you'll ever see the Marvel games. I'm not saying that like I know anything. I'm just saying that I don't know what the deal was. And for them to go back and renegotiate, hey, can we put Ultimate Alliance 2 or Deadpool when the rights to those characters in video games have gone to other people? I don't know what those deals look like. But certainly I think, Ricardo's excited because Sekiro is going to be on there, so I'll have no excuse. The Crash series, especially with Crash 4, which was excellent. I'd love to see Toys for Bob get away from this disastrous Crash Team Rumble, or at least turn that into something like with a lot more games. Because it's not a bad game. It's just not a very, it's not a very sticky game. So you kind of move on with your fucking life very quickly. Obviously, the Call of Duty shit is cool to have on there, going back to the very first ones. I'd love to see Prototype on there again. That would be cool. And obviously, Diablo. I don't know how they're going to handle World of Warcraft subscriptions, Hearthstone, things like that. I mean, Hearthstone's already free, but Archival Horror says, Jaffe, you're saying that this is the future and the art form will blossom under Game Pass. Now you're just saying just unsub if someone raises prices. Yes. Why are those? I am saying that. That's right. Explain to me why those two things are problematic. I am basically saying that if this company is managed well, if this acquisition is managed well, and Game Pass in general, and they are able to bring new people or into management or fix the old people who have sucked really badly, then great. But you're always balancing that. You're always balancing, the business and the art form. What's the problem? I don't understand what you're saying. I mean, but if it's too busy, if it's too expensive, I don't care how artistic it is. If they're going to charge me for it, I don't think it's worth it. I'm not going to play it. It doesn't make sense, VP. No, he says, I know Activision published Sekiro, but I'm not 100% sure they can actually put it on Game Pass. It almost seems like a game that's too good for Game Pass. I don't know. I mean, I think one of the ways that they could really, hurt themselves is if they start to say, okay, remember how we said everything comes day one to Game Pass? Well, it's not everything. It's not everything. Return says Sony is going to lose marketing, early beta, and exclusive content for Call of Duty. That's the problem. Microsoft doesn't need to make it exclusive to hurt Sony. I don't know about that because I don't know what it means when Microsoft stands there in court and says there will be Call of Duty parity release on these other systems or certainly on PlayStation. Does that mean just that the quality and the release date will be there? Or does it also mean that, any item in Call of Duty on Microsoft will be available on PlayStation? I don't know. I don't know what that deal is. Jaffe, does Jim Ryan sign a deal now? Sony said they won't give him dev kits. Yeah, well, I mean, then that's on Sony. That and they will. Come on. The money that came out in the conversation of the FTC about how much money they make off Call of Duty, they're just going to be like, no. If Microsoft is contractually obligated to release this game day one on your system, and you're going to fuck your fans over because you're just butthurt, I hate that term, I'm sorry. You're just got a bloody nose because you couldn't block the acquisition, then you're a pretty piece of shit. And I don't think that's Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan has played this as smart as he could from the beginning. And there's nothing, even though I don't like the image Jim Ryan had to paint, I absolutely feel that he did everything. I wouldn't have done anything different. I mean, he's smarter than I am as an executive. I'm not saying I would have thought to do what he did, but when I hear what he did, I go, yeah, that's probably what you should fucking do. So Game Pass will move to a tiered system, says DeFrenzy. Entry level full of ads, no first party. If it's free, that's great. Game Pass with no ads, no first party. Game Pass Ultimate with first party day and date. Great. Again, so what? What does that matter? I mean, I'm not saying you're complaining about that, but I'm saying, yes, they may do that. And then it'll be up to the consumer to decide if that's a good deal. Is it a good deal for the consumer to, if you only pay for the cheapest tier or no tier for Call of Duty, every single time you boot up a game, it's free, but you've got to watch, you got to play a minute of ads. Sorry, but you're not paying for anything. You're getting it for free. Then pay for something. But if the audience says, no good, we're walking, then they'll either fix it or not. Kotick, my understanding, Kotick has said he's going to walk, or that's part of the deal. But like I said, I think these days, if you're fucking the CEO of Microsoft and the board, the best thing you can do is beg him to stay and say, can we please give you a lobotomy so you'll stop supporting all this creepy shit? And can you please make restitution for all the people you've hurt with your terrible policies and your terrible ability to allow people to do these awful things, which he's denying? Come on. I don't know. I'm just allegedly. Let's say allegedly. But I think if they could do something like that, I think he would be a much better leader of Xbox at the level that he could be. Liquid, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, what do you think the quality amongst Activision games will be like now? I mean, a lot of that depends. Let's put it this way. Unless I think there need to be changes in Microsoft management, but let's say there are not. If nothing changes in Microsoft management, then I think the real trick becomes, how do you motivate whoever ends up running Activision to be an amazing executive like Kotick has been. As much as I hate Bobby Kotick, he gets this shit out like fucking clockwork. And, how do you do that if Kotick's gone and you no longer have, the same levers that you pulled to motivate people? So assuming they can deal with that, and who knows if they can, then I don't think much would change. But I would love, my fantasy though, Liquid, would be something like they figure out the management problem, at least within Activision, if Kotick leaves. And then they're doing stuff like, let's let Toys for Bob, go back and make a Crash game or a cartoony 3D platformer. And let's let, are you saying something, Ricardo? Oh no, is that Ravnos? That's what I would say. That's what I would say, Liquid Data. I would say that would be the ideal, because there are cool brands they have that it would be nice to have these studios, be able to do some more creative stuff again. But of course, they're still going to need the big Call of Duties every year. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go down. All right, what's up, Ravnos? Did we lose him? Did my internet die? Am I still streaming? Hello, Echo One. I think I'm still streaming, but I think my Discord just died. Let me reboot it. Let me ask Ricardo what's going on. We're still good. Okay, Ricardo, are we still streaming? Do I just need to reboot Discord? I think maybe, there we go. In the meantime, though, Ricardo is saying that Xbox will own the biggest first-person shooters in the industry: Halo, Overwatch, Call of Duty, Doom. That's true. Is it good for Halo? Yeah, it's a great point. No, it's terrible for Halo. Because, hang on, let me see who this is. 1 second, fellas. Discord's dead, though. I'll get it later. But yeah, I mean, it's terrible for Halo. Because Halo, I think, has already sort of proven they don't have a great developer for it. It's kind of the I think even before this new one came out, it was kind of clear that Halo really wasn't what it used to be. So now when you look at it, and you've got Call of Duty, Overwatch, Doom, yeah, why even spend any time on Halo? I mean, 343 seems to be like a shit show. I think you take the talented people there and you kind of put them where they need to go and you close that fucking place down. Isn't that terrible? Look at me talking all terrible. I don't want to see people lose their jobs. I think Bobby will be gone. He will get his big payday and leave, says Jason WB. He has had so much money, his net worth. Yeah, no, I know. I absolutely know. I'm just saying my fantasy, if I'm just being perfectly mercenary about what I would do, is I would bring Kotick on as the head of Xbox, Microsoft Games, whatever, and I would bring Ybarra on as the head of Blizzard, and I would bring, which he's already on, I would bring Ybarra on as the head of Xbox Games. I'm going to do this again. Ybarra stays at Blizzard. Rob Ferguson goes to become Matt Booty. Phil Spencer works with Rob Ferguson, and it's all run through Kotick. That's what I would say. Although he's a total piece of shit. Kotick is. You want to call the red phone? Okay, I'll put up the red phone. I'll give it a shot. Ricardo, can you? Am I still going? Bobby's net worth. Yeah, Bobby's not staying for the money. We had Pachter on the show a couple months back, and Pachter said, the dude is very greedy. He says he's one of his favorite people. He says he likes him a lot, but he says he's really fucking greedy. So it may be that even though he's not in it for, the moment-to-moment ducats, he still may very well be, in it to see how much he can make before he kicks the bucket. I don't fucking know. Do I think Activision needs a fresh face? No. Why would they? I mean, politically, PR-wise, or do you mean success-wise? They're doing amazing. Unless I'm missing something. I thought Activision has been doing great for a very, very long time. They're consistently overperforming is what I gather. Where the fuck is there it is. Okay, red phone. Here you go. Red phone, if you want to call in. I don't know if we'll keep it open for too long, but the red phone is 619-752. Hang on. 619-752-0548. But here's the question. Seriously, here's the question. If you are Jim Ryan, what is your day like? We'll talk about that in a second. Let me get this first. Is this Ravnos?
Yep, this is Ravnos.
What's up, man?
No, I'm trying to think of where to begin.
Wherever you would like, sir.
Yeah, okay. One of the things that I think, I don't think you're doing this on purpose. I think a lot of people just misconstrue it. When the FTC is talking about Sony or PlayStation, they're not saying, we need to protect this Japanese company. What they're saying is we need to protect the 200-plus million people who own a PS4 or a PS5, because when those people bought those machines for not a little amount of money, they were buying them under the assumption that these Activision games, these other games, were going to be on that system like they always have. So one of the fears of the FTC, which I don't really think was all that warranted, to be honest, so let's get that out there. I'm not a pony. Yes, I have a PS5 and I prefer it, but that's regardless. So one of the concerns of the FTC is to make sure that Microsoft doesn't turn around and do exactly what they did with Bethesda, which is say, we're going to do it case by case. And here's what the case by case has been. No. You're not getting this. You're not getting this. You're not getting it.
Okay, well, that's not true. First off,
that is true. Only the one.
Would you like me to tell you how it's
came out?
It's not true.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's not true. First off, because the only reason Microsoft came in and did that, according to the findings at the court hearing, was because Sony was going and saying, "No, Xbox, you can't have this. You can't have Deadfall or whatever it's called, Deathloop. You can't have the Tokyo."
Well, no. Those were timed exclusives.
No, originally Jim Ryan went out there and wanted to make those exclusives, and he wanted to make Starfield.
He wanted
exclusive.
Yes, he wanted he offered.
Okay, so
from
what
I
I'm
understood-
saying is then in that case your argument of like they're just trying to protect the consumer.
No.
Well, what about the Xbox consumer? What about the PC Game Pass consumer? But let's throw that out for a minute.
I
It's
agree
almost,
with that.
It's almost
no,
almost
I
irrelevant.
Totally agree
Okay,
with that.
okay, but it's
the
almost
FTC,
irrelevant.
Listen, Jaffe, please.
It's almost
The
irrelevant though,
FTC
even if they did everything
can't-
you said. Go ahead.
The FTC's job isn't to stop Company A from making a timed exclusive or even a full exclusive deal. The FTC's job is to make sure that when a giant corporation gobbles up an entire pie piece of the industry, which is what AKB is, they're not just a publisher. They're humongous. If this goes through, they don't just get Activision, Blizzard, and King. They get Battle.net. They get decades of IPs from Activision.
Sure.
It's a lot bigger than people like the Bethesda thing. That's a big deal. That's potatoes compared to this one. Not just in the money, but just in what you're actually getting when you buy a Bethesda.
Okay, but the point is though, let's take your first
But
point
my
first. Which point do you want to take
The
first?
first point was that it was when they were saying Sony or PlayStation, they were talking about the consumers who own.
I understand.
Sony or
And so
PlayStation
what I was going to say is that and I don't know if you're right, but let's say you're right about the fact that the FTC just wanted to protect those people who still have a PS4 and just bought a PS5 and are like, look, we bought this under a certain assumption. Okay. I'm assuming the reason that cleared the hurdle with the judge, I'm surprised. Here's why I question the FTC's being motivated by what you're suggesting, is that if that were the case, then when Microsoft stepped forward and said, we will sign a deal, Sony, and make this so we will have this on all your systems for 10 years and it'll be parity, then that should have shut that worry down. Because, PS6, PS7, sure, but that doesn't fall under the description of what you're saying the FTC was worried about, okay? So the fact that the FTC didn't
totally
say,
agree.
okay, well, if you agree, then you would say that can't really be what was motivating the FTC, because if it was, they would have walked away from the case the minute Microsoft did that. So then my question for you is, because they didn't walk away, why didn't they walk away if they had taken care of that checkbox that you're saying is the main reason they had an issue with the deal to begin with?
Yeah. Well, the weird thing is, I don't know why the FTC seemed to focus so heavily on specifically Call of Duty. That really, to me, baffles my mind. Yes, I understand. Call of Duty for Microsoft before this merger, acquisition, whatever, was ever even announced. Call of Duty from Xbox was nothing. The
Call of Duty
the
on
Microsoft
Call
player
of Duty was
base for Call
nothing
of Duty-
on. It hasn't been since
Microsoft on Xbox.
It hasn't been since 360.
Yeah, exactly. It was small potatoes for them. It's like not even a big deal. But for Sony, it's huge. So I get that aspect of it, but who cares? My concerns with any kind of giant conglomeration, and this is where you and me disagree, and it's opinion, and I base my opinion on history, and you probably do too, maybe, we'll see, is you think that when one company gobbles up a lot of companies, it makes art better.
That is not what I said.
Well, you said
I did not
it was
say
going to help the art. You said it was going to help the art.
Are you a
correct?
programmer? You're a programmer, right?
No, I'm not a programmer.
Okay, because
I was design test.
Okay, because
Test and
your
design.
lack of
I never
ability
programmed.
to track logic is goofy to me.
No, dude, I'm going off of what you said.
You're
on your
not going
screen.
off of what I said. What I said was, if a company,
I'm not looking at it. Go ahead.
Okay, what I said was, we have a history of subscription-based services that when they become, I won't say like you're, that's what you're saying. That's not what you're saying. You said, I said, when a company gobbles up another company, it is usually bad for the business and for the product and for the consumer. And you're saying that I'm not saying that. I'm saying as it relates to subscription-based services, we have seen that having bigger and better content on subscription-based services leads to other services rising up to compete, thus yielding more interesting, artistic, competitive content on the subscription services. That's what I think will happen here as we have, say, PS Plus and Game Pass competing. That's totally different. That's a very specific scenario I'm painting. I'm not saying that if Pepsi goes in, I'm not, that's what I've always said. I've never said if Pepsi goes in, it's cool if they buy Coke and if they buy all the, RC Cola. I've never said conglomeration for the sake of, not conglomeration, buying up things for the sake of buying up things. I'm just good all the way around. I have never said that. I have never.
Okay, my apologies then. I must have misheard you.
I said this deal is good for the art form.
AKB deal,
they're different things. It's not what you're talking about.
No, this deal is one big company gobbling up the competition.
Okay, but
because
do you not understand that there can be scenarios where one big company gobbles up the competition and it's bad, but another scenario where a company gobbles up the competition and it's good? You're saying I'm saying that all the time it's great.
I'm trying to think of when it's been good.
I'm telling you, when subscription services is good.
Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's times where it's been good.
I'm being very specific about.
Fiat,
I'm being very specific.
Yeah, go on.
I'm being very specific as it relates to subscription services and this particular deal, is what I'm saying. But yes, I can point to lots of acquisitions that have been bad.
I can only think of one like actual relevant example, and that was the AT&T selling off Warner Brothers, HBO to Discovery, and so far that's been terrible.
Well,
Since they bought them, they killed a movie to save money on taxes.
Every company.
That's bad for art.
Yeah,
that's still bad for art, Jaffe. You got to admit, when a project in the entertainment industry is canceled, so that the giant parent company can write it off. That's a really
dumb argument because they
that is not a dumb argument. That's a fact. You're telling me that canceling
Did you go to college? Did you go to high school?
Yes, I went to college.
How can you argue this
point with art?
Because what you're saying is you're when you say something like that's a fact, and you're like, come on.
No,
let me explain how that's. Let me explain how that's not a fact. Let me explain how that's not a fact as it relates to art.
Write-off versus art is not a fact.
Okay,
go ahead.
Even your condescension is.
No. I'm saying this so the people in the chat can understand.
Oh, because they're idiots.
What we're saying.
Okay.
No, because we were talking over each other.
What I am saying is that in the case, and again, I don't like the head of Discover at all. I don't like that when I open up HBO Max. I'm never going to call it Max. Suddenly I'm seeing, great, Scorsese films next to fucking house flipping shows. I'm not a fan. But the idea that just because he canceled Batgirl for a tax write-off means that's bad for art, well, maybe he did that because that allowed him to fund instead, because he was going to have to make the money somewhere. He says, okay, well, Batgirl's tracking terribly. Nobody really likes it. Let's kill that. And even though I've never watched The Idol, I hear it's horrible with The Weeknd and Johnny Depp's kid. I know. I haven't seen it. Don't want to see it. Too. But I'm saying, though, that the idea of a weird, unusual, strange series like that, he's like, you know what? I'm going to spend the money that I saved on this because I can't afford everything. So you just saying because they cancel a movie, that's a guarantee that you're
bad for art. No, I said it was bad for art.
It's not bad for art if the movie No, it's not bad for art. Look, if I canceled you coming to my house and painting my house beige because I wanted that money to go to Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel, it's not bad for art that I canceled your painting.
Okay,
so you don't know
the assumption that it wasn't to save money on taxes.
It was to
fund other products.
Everything is to fund other products. Everything is to basically keep the company alive and profitable, so they can keep making the products they make that make the company alive and profitable.
Did you had HBO Max, right?
I still do.
Well, no, now you have Max.
Well, I don't call it that.
Have you looked at Max compared to what HBO Max was? Have you noticed how a lot of the good stuff is gone, and what you have is a lot of reality TV, like My Fat Fiance, My 600-Pound.
A lot of the good stuff is not gone.
Come on.
There is. You're talking again. This is why I asked.
A lot of it went away.
I
No,
wasn't
Jaffe,
being
really, a lot went away.
condescending. I wasn't being condescending when I said, "Did you go to college, or do you know how to discuss things?" Because let me show you. If you look at your screen right now, this is what I'm talking about. So here's my Max account, right? If you go to the homepage, it is a disaster. I despise it.
Yes.
But okay.
Yes.
Right. And you would be forgiven for thinking that HBO Max has become, they've got some movies, but there's all these fucking shitty reality crap, right? You would be forgiven. But before you call in and talk and act like you get a seat at the table, do a little research and realize that there's a tab now called HBO where all of the more high quality stuff exists. There's a tab called Movies. So yes, they are presenting to you at the very beginning, which I think is disgusting and disrespectful, their whole suite of crap that's intermingled with the good stuff that you've come to know and love from HBO. But if you actually just click on the website, you realize that no, HBO Max, barring a couple of movies that have gone and come, is pretty much the same as it ever was. So that's why I'm saying, did you go to college? I don't mean that like being a dick. I'm saying it's like, you realize, of course, that when you enter into an argument, you need some ammunition regarding knowledge or experience or research. You're just saying things.
Well, I mean, you could Google it, but
I'm looking at it right now.
I personally, I am looking at the list on IGN of every original movie removed from HBO Max, every original TV show removed from HBO Max, and every other piece of content removed from HBO Max.
I'm sure there has
and
been
it's around
some.
40 things. Granted, most of it is crap that I never would have watched.
Let's look it up. Let's look it up and see what's got you so upset.
Like, I don't care about Uncle Grandpa.
No, hang on.
Let's
Let's look at it. Removed from HBO Max, because this clearly, you got to be fucking really passionate about this content to throw down the way you are. Let's find out, Ravnos. An American Pickle, which I do think that sucks. They pulled that. I haven't seen it, but that's a Seth Rogen original. The Witches, I think that sucks they pulled. That was a remake of the Roald Dahl film. The rest of the stuff I don't really know. Here's original TV shows. 12 Dates of Christmas. About Last Night, which was a terrible TV show based on a pretty fun movie. It's not like they're pulling out, Game of Thrones. They did get rid of Westworld. But they didn't get rid of it. But Westworld isn't gone to die. Westworld has moved to another streaming service so they can make money, right? I mean, again.
Oh, have they?
Yes.
No, this is something I liked Westworld. A lot of people hate the third season. I'm like, I don't understand why you hate
Let's see where it's going now. It is going.
I thought it was done.
It's done.
Okay, but they're going to be streaming it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious.
It says Discovery. This was in February. You had plenty of time to do your research. Discovery announces that HBO Max shows like Westworld, Raised by Wolves, and The Nevers will move to free streaming services. What's the problem?
Oh, I don't know.
No, you don't know. Ravnos, I
like
love you. Ravnos, let me tell you something. As a fellow human, I love you with all my heart and soul. As a fellow human and as a Gabbin and Games fella, I love that you're part of our community. But don't you ever, I'm kidding, I don't care. Don't you ever fucking call me unresearched. But I'm look.
Well, I didn't really plan on us going that far into.
Well, because I'm not a fucking moron. I'm the reason I say I'm wrong a lot, and I am wrong a lot, is because my mind is open. I want to learn, but that means I'm going to get some data. Good. Give me some data to prove your point.
Can we talk gaming?
Sure.
Can we talk gaming examples?
Real quick, because Ricardo's having a conniption fit. He's like,
do you remember when the Embracer Group gobbled up like 10% of the industry almost?
When who?
Gobbled up this and that and the other? Embracer Group.
I know.
Okay, have you paid attention to the company's games that have been released through the Embracer Group?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know, Saints Row reboot?
Yep.
Which a lot of people hated for dumb reasons. You and me didn't.
Yep.
But you got to admit, that game is pretty lackluster compared to previous Saints Row games. And no, I'm not talking about 1 and 2.
I know.
I'm talking about like Saints Row 3.
What's your point, though? Yes, they've had some stinkers, and they have not done very well in the market either.
Yeah, the Golem game.
Yeah.
That's another one. That's a game that came about after a conglomerate bought up a bunch of studios, not publishers.
Okay, so let me make sure.
But that's my fear.
Hang on. So you're saying if I do, and I don't have the research, but you're saying if I do the research right now, and I look up the developer publisher of Gollum, who just, by the way, announced they will no longer be
Daedalic Entertainment.
Okay,
yep. They're no longer making
But
games.
you're telling me that they were not developing Gollum until Embracer came in and funded them, correct? There was no Gollum in development.
No.
Well, then
No,
come on.
no.
Okay,
That's
so
not what I'm saying.
okay,
That's not what I'm saying.
so then what you would say is what? If Evolver came in and canceled it, you would say,
Okay,
see, they bought up all these companies and they killed it like Batgirl. See, it's bad.
Look, Jaffe, just like it's not fair to blame Phil Spencer every time an Xbox game sucks.
Yes,
because
it is.
Guess what? There's always going to be games that...
It's every time it's his fault.
Sure.
Every time it's his fault.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then why do you want him around again? I don't remember. But
Because
anyway,
I think his vision is good. He has no real clue clearly how to drive others to
I don't
execute
really
it.
know what his vision is because I honestly, Jaffe, I think his vision is we need to get rid of the little plastic box and just have Game Pass.
Well,
Otherwise,
that ultimately
why would he
is the
allow
vision, and everybody has
Samsung
that vision.
TV?
Yeah,
Well,
everybody
if
has
that's
that.
the
That's,
case,
that's where we're
then-
going. We're going there anyway. But he's not good at running product development.
Route.
Well, maybe they want to.
Microsoft has always been a software company.
So? Okay, I'm going to let you go.
So I'm saying Microsoft should just not do the box anymore.
Yeah.
And then there wouldn't be the console warrior shit.
Well,
see, and that's the thing. I look in the chat a little. They all think I'm a pony. I'm a pony because I don't like trillion-dollar companies buying billion-dollar companies. Like, oh yeah, that makes me a Sony fan. If Sony buys a publisher, I will bitch about it too. But now that this has gone through, supposedly, I'm not going to be surprised when Sony starts buying up Japanese publishers.
Good, let them buy whatever they want. I don't give a fuck. Because the talent in the game industry, just like any entertainment industry, will move where it needs to go to express itself. That will never be denied.
That's true.
Okay, that's
point.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear this Disney bullshit anymore either. I'm so fucking tired of a bunch of man babies saying, "Well, see, look what Disney did to Star Wars. Look what Disney did to this. Look what Disney did to that."
Dude,
Disney
Star Wars sucked long before Disney bought
Disney.
it.
You don't fucking stand here and defend the prequels. And more importantly, you got
terrible.
You got all the stuff that is better than they've ever done after the first three. You've got some shit in there, sure you do. But you've also
like blaming Disney for Indy 5.
Yeah, you've got
Disney's not to blame for Indy 5. The people who wrote the fucking script and decided that this needed to be made.
No.
I really doubt that the CEO of Disney at the time, was it Patrick or whatever? I can't remember the guy's name. The guy that they fired because he pissed off Florida. I doubt that he went, "Hey, Kathleen Kennedy, I demand we have an Indy 5." No. It was a bunch of people.
Iger's the guy who knows what the fuck he's doing. It's never was that guy. Anyway, I'm going to let you go, buddy. Thanks for calling. Call back anytime except right now because we're done.
Okay,
thanks,
bye.
Bud. Disney did help Star Wars, Mike Warner. Here's the thing. I'm 52 years old. I was there day one when Star Wars opened in 1977. I'm going to get back to games, Ricardo. I just got to say this real quick. And I've seen every one of those fucking movies in the theater when it opened, okay? You had almost nothing of Star Wars when Lucas was running it. And when you did have him step back up to the plate, he gave us really great world building, but terrible movies. Absolutely terrible movies, okay? Now, with Disney, yeah, you've got the new movies, which have their moments, but overall are mostly forgettable. But you also have The Mandalorian, which is, I haven't seen season 3, but the first 2 seasons are great. You have Obi-Wan, which is good. You have Book of Boba Fett, which is okay. You've got tons of Marvel comics. You have Andor. You have the new one, what's it called, Ashoka coming. You've got more Star Wars, and some of it's going to be good, and some of it's going to be bad. But if you just take the Star Wars from 1 to 6 before Disney came in, you know how many of those are great movies? 1, Empire Strikes Back. You know how many of those are good movies? 2, Star Wars and Revenge of the Sith, right? The rest are terrible. Terrible movies. So don't act like you have all 6 of those were fucking, crackerjack. Most of them were terrible. Jesus. Ricardo says this. He says, did Jim Ryan put too many eggs in the basket? Can he be in risk from the board or something? No, I mean, look, I think if you are the board of directors at Sony, I think they, okay, here's what I'll tell you. I'm not going to name names, but I will tell you that they're people I adore and have great respect for at Sony at an executive level and varied, up and down the chain, beyond executives and below, have told me, they say, Jaffe, thank you, Tracer, and we'll get to see you, buddy. Thank you for all the support, as always. They're like, Jaffe, you would be so surprised how many of these high-up executives know nothing. They don't play games. They don't, let's put it this way. When a great mobile game hits, right? Like Clash of Clans for a while was really big. Fucking Shuhei Yoshida and Scott Rhodey had a goddamn clan made up of Sony employees all over the place, testers and producers. I mean, these guys are fucking gamers. They know what's happening everywhere. Big, little, small, indie as fuck, whatever. Okay? But they aren't all like that, okay? And so the idea that the board would look at Jim Ryan and go, what could he have done? The only thing Jim Ryan has failed at, in my opinion, is reading the tea leaves a while ago. Because at least on the surface, he seems for a very long time to have been about same as it ever was. And he didn't realize the ground was shifting under his feet when it came to things like Roblox, kids not really playing consoles as much as they used to, missing out on games as a service in a really big way. And so that I think he can be blamed for. But, and I like Sean Layden as a person a great deal. I reached out to him the other day. I said, please come on the fucking show, man. He never will. I can never get that guy on the show. But maybe he's to blame for it a little bit as well. I don't know. But what I will tell you, though, is you could blame executives for that. But I don't know how you could have handled this any better if you're Jim Ryan. He did everything he could. I mean, because ultimately there was no case there. Even Jim Ryan was caught inadvertently reported to have said that he didn't even care if they had Call of Duty. He just wanted to block the merger. He knew there was nothing they could do. Tatum, thank you so much, buddy, for being a member for 2 goddamn months here on the Diocese of Soldiers. He says, does Sony say, fuck it, bring on Killzone or another Call of Duty killer and do it their own way? Well, listen, I don't think Killzone is the right game to do, and I certainly don't think unless this new game that is being done at Sony, and I don't know if the guy that they took from Rainbow Six is doing that multiplayer Horizon thing, or if they've got him doing a shooter. I think Killzone is a meh license, but I know a lot of people love the multiplayer, and so, yeah, I definitely... And Jim Ryan, I think, is also doing right-ish when it comes to the game. Like, if you look at Jade Raymond's game that they announced, I thought it was the most generic fucking Ubisoft-looking thing in the world. And I think they dropped the ball in that reveal because it didn't show any of the great Sony magic and love that we're used to. And I think Sony with their games as a service needs to be like 80, 90% meat and potatoes, but they need a little bit of that magic, and that was not anywhere in there. But I do think it's right to say we need to make these fucking things arty-farty, not arty-farty. And I think the fact that he had the fucking guts to go into Naughty Dog, or at least agree with what Naughty Dog wanted to do when Bungie came in and said, Last of Us Factions is not ready for prime time. I know you've worked on it for a long time. You guys are going to lose money if you do this. And they paused that, and they moved a lot of people off that. We don't know if that'll ever see the light of day now. So I don't actually think that he would be fired for those things, but I think the biggest thing he's guilty of is really not being aware, or being aware and not caring enough and seeing that the ground was shifting. But that's what I would say. Let me get also, I want to get Lord Garth. Thank you, Lord Garth. I appreciate that super chat. He says, I watch everything on Plex, even for all my subscribed services. I don't switch from app to app. I research what to watch. Time is too valuable. That's cool. I mean, it's wonderful that you do it that way. I don't think that's most people. I think most people, part of the fun, just like back in the day with video stores, is kind of going on to hang on, this is going to fuck things up. Is going on to the thing and looking up what to watch and scrolling through the thing, the menus and stuff. But yeah, I mean that's great, Lord Garth, that you make that time. I don't know if I know what Plex is though. Is Plex like you put all your subservices on Plex and then you can just use that to watch anything? It's all on one app. Gerald King, thank you for the super chat, buddy. When Warner Brothers bought NRS, the story of the games upgraded. What is NRS? Can anybody tell me what NRS is? I don't know. NRS. Warner Brothers bought... Oh, NetherRealm Studios. Are you saying the narrative in the Mortal Kombat games got better, or you're saying that the story about those games is that the games improved? I'm not sure what you mean. Let me know, or somebody in the chat, let me know what he means, and I'll address it. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Gravity, thank you, buddy. He says, FYI, Phil Spencer sent an internal message saying they're withdrawing the CMA appeal to pursue a more immediate compromise. Right. So I think thanks, Gravity, for that and for the super chat. What I saw and what we talked about at the top of the show was exactly that, what you're saying, Gravity, which was they're thinking now that the FTC is most likely proven false in their ability or weak in their ability to block this. They're thinking now that the CMA will go, okay, let's hear your compromise, which before they weren't interested in, which is probably going to amount to, hey, we'll put Call of Duty on, 10 years, blah, blah, blah. But I agree. Okay, so Gerald King is saying the story mode itself became better. Cool. Yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing a lot of people don't understand is when you are not that NetherRealm I think was, I don't know who owned NetherRealm before. Was it Midway and they bought them from Midway? But when you were sort of cash poor, you don't really, I'm sure it's not like Ed Boon probably wasn't like, gee, you know what? Maybe we should hire a writer. That, of course he probably was. Or a more expensive writer or more writers. And let's spend more money on cutscenes. But he probably couldn't do it. And then suddenly he's got this war chest and we end up with, Mortal Kombat now, the best-selling fighting game, which surprised me. I thought it was going to be Smash Bros. It is the best-selling fighting game out there. And I thought Street Fighter would be hot on its heels, but it's not. I mean, it's crazy. I was surprised Tekken was as high as it is. But anyway. Fupy says maybe now with Call of Duty and Candy Crush, Microsoft can finally make enough money to beat Sony because that's what they've always lacked money. No, that's what I said to you. You guys act like... I can't do it. I can't say the same thing over and over. You know how I feel about that. I do not think anything negative about Sony's talent and Sony's ability to make certain kinds of games that are groundbreaking and brilliant and beloved and wonderful. And Microsoft is not that. They have never shown the ability to be that. They have never shown the desire to be that. Maybe they'll be able to purchase that. I don't fucking know. But that's never been the reason that I think this deal should go through. I think this deal should go through because they may very well be forced to compete sometimes, certain games at that level. Jaffe says, Fupy, many of us just don't believe Microsoft will make great games, and that's all some of us care for, not their industry. That's all I care for as well. And again, that's why I've been saying Phil Spencer, can't produce sperm. Put somebody else in there who knows how to run product development. Put somebody else in there that's not Matt Booty. All right, Ricardo, we'll talk to you tomorrow, buddy. Thank you for everything, as always. We'll have a more structured show on the next one. This is just it. I hope it didn't feel too free swim, but it's like I think if I was to jump on to talking about, hey, let's talk about 87% of games don't get preserved, according to some people. I think most people want to talk about this today, but I could be wrong. What do you think of the new Twisted Metal show? Yeah, Martin, I thought the teaser was kind of fun. I thought the Keeley trailer was awful, just terrible. That he showed there, and I thought that the new one was a great deal of fun. And I'm quite excited to if the show feels like that, and I kind of talked about it like I said, it felt like a midnight movie. If it kind of has that flavor all throughout, I'm in. I think it's great. It kind of feels like Twisted Metal. It feels kind of junky and a little low budget, but it's got that heart. The trailer did. I don't know if the movie will or the show will, but the last trailer they put out kind of feels. It's the first time I've seen it and said that feels like Twisted Metal to me. I mean, if you guys ever saw the live cutscenes, I'm not saying they're as bad as the live cutscenes, because they're not. But they've got that kind of cheese, and they're a little, even the low budget, like when they have the shot of Thomas Hayden Church is his name, and he fires the rocket from the top of his police car. And it kind of looks chintzy and cheesy. It doesn't, but that's, I've always said that Twisted Metal to me is like a great American bar band. It's not going to play arenas. It's not going to be, the cool new hip band that all the cool kids want to see. It's the kind of sawdust on the floor band playing the good kind of rock and shit that you like, and there's a lot of heart to it, but it's kind of it's kind of rough around the edges. So I like this new trailer because I think it reflects that, but I have no idea if the show will be that. Maybe that's the vision, says Mass. I hope. Okay, hang on. Panda, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, what's up, Jaffe? I'm finally watching live. Thank you. I usually just listen to you live shows at work. Found out about your channel from Game On Daily. Oh, thank you, buddy, for the super chat and for watching. I'm a fan of Game On Daily. I will be tuning into their show tonight because that's the thing. I got to be careful because I do sort of inflammatory clickbait thumbnails sometimes. They're not meant to be clickbait, but people call them that. But I very much stand by what I say. And I'm not saying Gaz doesn't, but I would say he would agree if you were to say you're an entertainer and a provocateur before you are a guy really opining seriously on video games. So I can't wait to watch them tear up the fanboys tonight just to rub salt in their fucking wounds, man. Not because I'm a mean guy, but because I think it's so silly that all these people take it so serious that I'm excited to kind of see how he does. So, okay. Canada Best, good to see you again, buddy. He says, what shooter should Sony revive? Resistance, Killzone, and Preparation? Neither. Neither. I think really, like I said, at this time, after watching Halo, I think you've got to be a little bit more safe in your subject. I think you need to be military, modern day, maybe a little bit in the future, but not much. And I think you need to have a little bit of a twist, but not like a crazy twist, like zombies or, all the soldiers have superpowers or, but, I think you need to go meat and potatoes with it. And I think you need to have a little bit of that Sony magic. I think you've got to be very careful with the alchemy of what you let in, because I don't think Resistance is that. I don't agree with you. I think you're fighting crazy monsters. And I think, like, if you watch the FTC, there's a lot of people. I mean, if your goal is to compete with Call of Duty, right? That's what I'm saying. That was your question, right? Not a great shooter. Sure, do whatever. But if your goal is to compete with Call of Duty, the FTC trial revealed that there were a meaningful, not majority at all, but a meaningful number of people that bought PlayStations only to play Call of Duty. That's all they bought. That's all they play. They don't care about anything else. I think you've got to tap into that audience. That audience is not going to be looking for a twist that's like, it's Modern Warfare, but everyone's, every time they respawn a past life or something cool and interesting. They're not looking for that, but I still think you need a little bit of magic in there. So it's not just like Jade Raven, that's her name, right? God, I'm losing my fucking mind. Jade Raven. No. Jade Raymond. Well, I'm thinking Raven. Don't get old, kids. Or do get old. It beats the alternative. But I think her first trailer came off as very forgetful. It was not inspired. The trailer, I mean, the game may be, but the what they showed felt very bland and forgettable. So you got to be careful not to do that. So when people are saying SOCOM, I wouldn't touch SOCOM with a fucking 20-foot pole. Because I think it comes off as generic these days, and more importantly, because the fan base will eat you alive. Because just there's no need to have the negative PR when you take one misstep when you reveal something and like, this fucking sucks. This isn't SOCOM. Fucking walk away from that. Don't even get in that fucking. It's like Vietnam again. Alejandro, thank you, buddy. Alejandro, he says, thanks, Jaffe, for keeping me company at work with your show. I'm a truck driver, and it gets lonely driving between LA and San Diego all day. Man, that, when I started streaming, I had those imaginations of stuff like that. I love that idea that there are people all over that are vibing with what we're talking about and, being part of our community and, doing their shit and making their contributions, but they're still, with us and we're sort of helping them get through things. That's awesome, man. Thank you for saying that and sharing that. I appreciate it. Fortnite and NBA 2K are those games nowadays, not Call of Duty as much anymore. Yeah, I know what you mean. You're talking about the games that really are the main bro games. Yeah, sure. I don't want to not give you your SOCOM, Eric, but that's what I'm saying. If Sony, look, here's a great example. If Sony were to say, here's what we're doing, fellas, like I said, we're doing PS Plus games day one, not our big games, but we're putting money aside to do 10 to 15, $10 million and under games for PS Plus every year, day one drop. One of them is going to be SOCOM. It's going to be a remaster. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to try to give you what you want with a little bit more modern sensibilities. And we're going to remake SOCOM 2. And if it's a big hit, then great. We'll keep making more of them. But it's not going to be this massive thing. We're not going to spend the crazy amounts of money. That, I think, SOCOM absolutely gets a seat at the table. But I don't think you want to try to go head-to-head with Call of Duty with SOCOM. I think it's a real problem. Yeah, Eric says, sign me up. Yeah, fuck yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's so, that's one of the things these smaller games really get kind of shit on because people automatically think indie arty farty. Now, I happen to love indie arty farty. One of my favorite games of the year is about a overweight diver who kills fish and makes sushi out of it. Right? Dave the Diver's brilliant, but you should be spending that budget making much more commercial things. That's what I would fucking say. I mean, even if all you did was spend $1.5 million, $2 million, and you made a fucking God of War Castlevania game. How hard is that? I mean, it's hard. You got to work hard and be creative, but you think people wouldn't show up to play a fucking day one PS Plus God of War fucking Metroidvania? Come on now. Dave the Diver is coming to Game Pass. They haven't announced it, but both of those services must be knocking at their door because it's brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. Fupy says the left-handed capture Sanctuary City. I don't know what he's talking about. Okay. Fellas, that's been a fun chat. I hope you had a good time. That has been Gabbin&Games for the day. I want to tell you a couple of things going on, though. Tomorrow, if you are a member at any level, we do what is called a pre-show. Pre-show goes live at 2 o'clock for about an hour and a half. It is super casual. It's me, Ricardo, and whoever happens to show up. And we're going through news and debating and discussing, hey, what should be on the show tomorrow? So the next show would be Thursday. So it's very interactive. It's very small. So you get a lot of, contributions to the conversation if that's something you're into. Any tier can join. That will be coming up tomorrow at 2. And then there's always other stuff happening here at Gabbin&Games. So if you're interested in this show, like it, subscribe, consider a membership. But even if you don't do any of that, the fact that you're here, you're part of our community, new members, welcome. Old members, thank you. Super chats, thank you. Really, really kind. And looking forward to talking to you guys again soon. Be well, be safe, and we will listen to our good God of War member, Alix Plox, as he plays Twisted Metal 2's Quake Zone Rumble cover.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to
You
bust.
goddamn